back. We have lots of games to talk about, a busy weekend in the NHL, but it was also a busy weekend throughout other professional sports. I have a feeling Russ is going to talk about the NFL or baseball or whatever. So let's get started with that.
Probably both. Let's talk about Carlos Beltran for a minute because we both remember him as a player. I listened to the press conference. Brody Van Wagenen talked about Beltran's leadership, and my issue with that is he always had good numbers. I don't remember him ever speaking out as a player, and I don't remember him ever being anything other than one of the other guys. Not that he didn't play hard, not that he didn't try hard, not that it's all well and good, but I wrote an article about it on sportsology.com if people want to check it out. But my question to you is, did you ever feel like Carlos Beltran was a leader?
Only late in his career, like when he came to the Yankees, there was a lot of talk about him being somebody who a lot of other players looked up to, and him being a veteran and leader.
Every veteran's got that story.
Right. But he was big in the PA and things of that nature. So, yes and no. I mean, not a vocal leader, not a rah-rah guy, not a guy who would like talk to the media and, that type of thing.
He never spoke to the media. That's a great point because that's where I was getting at.
Right. I mean, but sort of like a quiet locker room leader. And I don't know if, because does that mean that it translates to him being a good manager? I don't know. I mean, from what I understand, he's a very smart guy. I know he worked with the Yankees the last couple of years. He was in consideration for the manager's job. It was him, Aaron Boone, and maybe I think it was Bam Bam Mulens and a couple other guys. The thing that's consistent with this hiring is that Beltran is going to be a push-button manager. He's going to be somebody who's
inexpensive.
He's inexpensive.
Because use a quote. I'm going to tell you what Brody said. Mm-hmm. He said it wasn't about what the other managers didn't do or show me. It was about what Carlos, showed me. And it's like, yeah, he also took $1.35 million when Joe Girardi's making at least $4 million.
Right. And he has the benefit of making tons of money as a player, so he doesn't need a big salary. So that was attractive to them. But he's also going to be somebody who, I'm assuming in the interview process, like Boone, he's going to be at the whim of the analytics department. They'll be
sure he is.
Right, they'll be putting the lineups out. Now, I don't know if it's going to end up being a guy like Terry Collins being the bench coach. If that happens, then you might get a little pushback because he's sort of an old style manager, and I think he wants to.
And he listened to everything the Mets told him, though.
Yeah. So I mean, it's gonna be really interesting to see. Right now with the Mets, I mean, I know that there was a little exchange on Twitter before the show regarding like big players that are out there.
We used car analogies, which was fun because I do have a 2007 Volkswagen and I do have a 2010 Kia, but I also don't have any car payments. So I'm the real winner in this.
Yes, but Anthony Rendon is a Lamborghini.
Yes.
And based on the way the Mets are operating right now, they would be spending on a 2001 Yugo rather than a Lamborghini. Yeah. So your dreams of Rendon, your dreams of Garrett Cole.
I don't even have any dreams of Garrett Cole. Rendon would be the only dream, but that would probably only happen if Cespedes was definitely out, and he's not out. But guess what? He's probably going to be delayed from the start of the season.
That could be, that could be the worst contract in professional sports.
I thought it was a good one when they signed it. They got one good season out of it. It could be the worst, though.
And then in the NFL last night, the Patriot haters got their wish. They lost to Baltimore. It was not a very close game, although
I didn't watch a minute.
I watched the first half of it. Baltimore did everything they possibly could to keep New England in that game. They were up 17-0, and then they fumbled, and then they did this and did that and let New England back in the game, but in the end they won. The Bills with the most unimpressive 6-2 record that you can possibly have.
The only thing I'll say about that is this. You're realistic. You know what kind of team they are. When people looked at the Colts and said, well, look, they're 5-2. You know how many bad 5-2 teams there are in this league? Like, at the end of the day, there's 5 good teams in the NFL.
I have to say this, and it's like, that like lately I've been like soured on the NFL. The NFL blows. The NFL is absolutely terrible. The product is horrible. The football is terrible. Every other play, there's either a flag, an injury, a commercial, or somebody running across the field, or some stupid celebration where the guy gets a first down and he acts like he just scored the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. So it's a clown show. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, I mean, we've watched good football in the past, and that's why we could kind of use that as a barometer. It has nothing to do with how great athletes are. But something about football is the presentation that you see on a station. And I know Philly fans are usually pretty critical, but I'm not a Philly fan. I just happened to watch that game because I didn't want to go out and watch the Jets lose to Miami because I knew they would. So instead, I watched the Eagles game, and Dick Stockton, who, again, has been around for a long time. And I do want to say two things.
Since God was a boy.
Yeah, WIP did two things today. The first one they did was Angelo Cataldi actually had somebody basically tape all of the mistakes Dick Stockton made in an episode in the one game so they could play it back. And it turned out to be 9 minutes of material. So then they had to shut it, basically whittle it down to like 2 and change. He got the score wrong. He got players wrong. One time he came in and he said, yeah, they don't have any timeouts left. And he goes, I mean, first downs. Like, it's just so much of that was pervasive. And it got to the point where the biggest gaffe that I saw, besides the score, he got the score wrong. The biggest gaffe was there was a play on the field where he was like, well, Louis Aguiar dropped the ball. He goes, oh, wait, no, that was Darren Sproles. And Aguiar wears number 13. Sproles wears 43. But there's a 7-inch difference in their height.
But he's not the Eagles broadcaster.
All he has to do is be able to see, but no longer see. And you know about guys that can't see because your beloved Yankees have a guy who can't judge a home run anymore.
He's old and blind like John Sterling. If I had $1 for every time the last couple of years I've heard, there's a long one in the left field. It is high. It is far. It is gone. Oh, wait a second. It was caught.
Susan, that's a fly out.
Yeah. Yeah. The guy's throwing it back in. Oh, it was caught. I'm sorry. He watches it on the monitor. And see, the thing is, whether it's local, like Harry Carey, or, I'm sure Vin Scully was slipped a little bit late in his.
Actually, he really didn't.
Well, or Ernie Harwell.
Good to the end. He was.
Yeah. It's just. They want the cachet of the announcer that they know and that they respect, and they'll take, the idiosyncrasies. They'll take the mistakes.
On a local broadcast, that's fine.
Well, hey,
hold on. This is national. When you're going national, you literally have to have your best. When it's local, yes, then the heartstrings get pulled because that's your guy. I get it. Well, are you trying to tell me there's nobody else that's under the age of 75 that couldn't have done that broadcast yesterday with Mark Schlereth, and they signed Stockton to more than a 1-year deal?
No, because they
signed to a multi-year deal. Like, come on.
People like his voice. That's why.
But the voice without any other benefits is not good.
Hey, I love Bob Cole. I grew up watching and listening to Bob Cole. Bob Cole, in his final game, Montreal-Toronto last year, said, and I think it was a shootout, great save by the goaltender. He didn't know the name of Freddie Anderson. People didn't care. I didn't care. It's Bob Cole. That's what I'm saying. It's like,
and here's some tweets, just so you know it's not me. One guy, the Shire, wrote, can't even imagine how big the font on Dick Stockton's phone is. Kevin Cooney, who's a local writer here, wrote 3 times in 5 minutes, Dick Stockton has called the Eagles the Bears and the Bears the Eagles. There's a page full of them.
He makes mistakes.
He made 9 minutes worth of mistakes.
Hey, it provided some good fodder for the.
If we made 9 minutes of mistakes, we'd have even fewer viewers than we have now.
That's baseball. That's baseball, Susan.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, November the 4th. I got that right. 2019.
We're all proud of you, Mike. I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, I think. And this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, let's talk about the weekend. Let's talk about a couple. Well, let's start with this. The team here in Buffalo, the Buffalo Sabres. Going into the weekend, they were 9-3-2. One of the tied with Boston atop the Atlantic Division. I've been saying for a while that I think this is sort of smoke and mirrors, that they had a really good month, but the month was sort of easy with a lot of, I think, fairly easy opponents. But, you still got to win the games.
Yes.
Back-to-back games Friday, Saturday, two completely different outcomes. Both losses. The first one, a 6-1 loss in Washington, where the Capitals jumped on Linus Ullmark and more. I felt actually sorry for Linus Ullmark because the defense let him down. They were up. Capitals were up 4-0 after about 11 or 12 minutes and ended up coasting to a 6-1 win. Next night, I'm at the KeyBank Center. Islanders, one of the hottest teams in the league, had won 8 in a row going into that game. Get a really odd goal from Derek Brassard early in the first period. And then, Russ, it was Operation Shutdown. And I don't think Varlamov had to make a really difficult save in the remaining 50, 55 minutes. I mean, he made some saves. He made some nice glove stops, but nothing 10 bell, nothing that where he was standing on his head. The Islanders neutralized the Sabres attack, and they basically had one forechecker, slapped 4 guys on the blue line, and dared the Sabres to come in and beat them, and the Sabres couldn't. And it ended up being a 1-0 game, and fans were not too happy. But this may be the start of the correction that I think might be happening with the Sabres, where I think they have talent. I think they're better than they were last year, but I don't think that they're good, and I don't think they're a playoff team.
Yeah, I don't think they're a playoff team. I think they're a good team. Could it change if they do something at the deadline? Maybe. I mean, that could, if they added a good defensive player, could that help? Maybe.
I actually think that what they need to add more is more scoring, because I think defensively, I think their blue line is okay. I think that they have.
I don't think it's okay for the entire season. I think they could probably still get scoring from down below, from Rochester. I think there's probably somebody they could call up.
Well, they called up Lawrence Pilot, who played up there last year, so there must be another injury. Scandella's on the IR.
Yeah. But I mean, forward-wise, they definitely have forwards.
Yeah, I don't.
At some point, you got to try them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think that they have anybody that can make a difference down in Rochester. Everybody.
You wouldn't bring up Rasmus Asplund and try him for 9 games?
I mean, I would, but I think he's not going to be anything more than a 4th-line center for them.
But you never know. He might add something.
I like him as a player, but yeah. I don't think he would be a difference maker. I think what they really need is, right now they mixed up their lines a lot in the 1-0 game. They were looking for anything that worked, but Middlestad is not playing center on the second line. He's playing the wing.
Right.
They've been playing Marcus Johansson up the middle, which is out of position. Vladimir Sobotka is playing in their top 9. I think they're trying to get as much out of him as they possibly can, as being a sort of a two-way guy. They're getting good performances out of their bottom guys on the forward line, guys like Larson and Gergensons and Opozo. But again, it's all on Eichel, Reinhart, Olofsson, who doesn't score other than on the power play, and then Skinner and that second line. And if they don't get any production out of the second line, then everybody's going to zero in on Eichel and Reinhart. And if they shut them down, they shut down the Sabres. So that's.
I would try Asplund. I mean, they got a good trade for Nylander. It's interesting because maybe they need Nylander's offense more than Yoki Haru on the blue line, but that's the trade they made. So, and I'm not saying it's a bad trade because it's not. But it's just, I would try Asplund before anything because that's from within. And and look, Lawrence Pilot could add some offense. He could. He had a streak last year of doing it. So we'll see.
Okay, now I'll talk about the Maple Leafs briefly. They won, and you were at that game, so we can talk about that. A 4-3 shootout victory in Philadelphia against the Flyers. And start with the Leafs. Again, does that defensive zone problems, inconsistency of effort. They played really great in the first 15 minutes of the first period, then disappeared for long stretches.
Long stretches.
Yeah. I mean, we're lucky to be tied going in the third because Philadelphia dominated the second, and then they got a fortunate goal at the end of the period. Bounced back from a bad defensive play by William Nylander on Sanheim's goal. Marner ties it up, and then they go.
Sanheim's goal, the one thing I'll be critical about that is, like, Freddie Anderson needed to get up. He stayed down like he was shot. Like, I don't know what – I mean, Sanheim had to put that on his backhand to actually score it. It wasn't like a bang-bang play.
Yeah, I mean, I will grant you that Anderson maybe should have been bounced up quicker. But that play, Nylander, they showed the replay. Sanheim went by Nylander like he was standing still. The Craig Simpson on Hockey Night in Canada called it a flyby.
Right.
But basically, he didn't make any contact.
When's the last time Nylander scored a goal?
Maybe a couple weeks ago. He's got 3 right now. He's got 9 points in 15 games, which averages out to less than 50. That is closer to the pace that he had last year, which was a 40-point pace, than the 2 60-point years that he had previous. And that's a concern because somebody had asked me a question about Dubas's plan regarding spending 40 to 50% of the Leafs cap space on 4 players, 3 of them being Tavares, Marner, Matthews, and then the 4th being Nylander. And I'm like, well, there's not a problem there unless the guys don't perform up to expectations. And right now, Nylander, he's a complimentary player who everything flows through Austin Matthews.
Right.
And if he's not creating, if he's not scoring, then he's not worth anywhere close to the almost $7 million he's making. So, I mean, in that game, I think the credit goes to Freddie Anderson, who made, I think it was close to 40 saves in regulation and overtime, and then 10 of 11 in the shootout. And a guy like Jason Spezza, who at the point in the second period where he'd taken 2 penalties for us, I said he's going to get put in witness protection because he's given Babcock the reason to bench him because he's taking penalties. And then he scored a goal in the shootout and redeemed himself. But that
I'll tell you what, I think William Nylander is banged up, and because I'm looking at his numbers here. His ice time has dropped a little bit, and his shots on goal are way down. Like, he had 130 last year, which is still way down from the year before, 184, 205. I get it. Like, roles changed. We also played fewer games last year, but I get it. His role changed. But he only has 36 shots on goal. He's averaging in 15 games like 2-point-something shots on goal, where last year he had 130 shots. He's not on pace for that.
No, it's because he's feeding Matthews. That's all he's doing is feeding.
No, but I think it's more than that. The same way that Sean Couturier, we all had to notice that something is wrong with him because all of a sudden he wasn't taking faceoffs. If you watch him shoot, he doesn't shoot as much either because it looks like it hurts. Keep an eye on Nylander. I think there's something going on with him, and I think Babcock will keep playing him because he is getting some assists and he's fast. So I think if he's gutting it out, then he's going to keep playing him.
Well, if he's hurt, he should be placed on injured reserve.
Well, they're not going to do that, Mike. They don't.
But he's not doing the team any good when he's playing the way.
I think so. So
I mean, we know that coach is wrong in certain instances because they'd be playing different players if he was right all the time. But
Coach Jello's right all the time, right?
No, I didn't say that. I mean, I am not a coach. I am not a general manager. I just play one on the Buzzcast. Okay, the Flyers, 3 of a possible 4 points.
Phil, for a minute, I got to get a bone.
Okay, 3 of a possible 4 points for the Flyers, but I think the concern there, and I didn't see a lot of the New Jersey game. They wanted a shootout. But in observing the Flyers, I didn't think Brian Elliott was particularly strong. I think their defense, Gostisbehere is, let's just say, I don't think Gostisbehere is playing up to the expectations of he's an offensive defenseman and that's his shtick. but he's got to play more effectively in his own zone. Otherwise, he's just going to be another Jake Gardner. And that's a problem. I think you've got a Provorov who's, I think, a really good 2A defenseman. You've got a young guy in Sanheim who I think will improve with experience. They brought in a veteran like Niskanen to help in terms of sort of being that Ron Hainsey veteran guy. But Gostisbehere I think his play is a problem. And honestly, other than I was a little surprised at like some of the giveaways that guys who were defensively responsible, like Couturier, made in that game against Toronto. So of what I've seen, and you've seen a lot more of them, Russ, I think Philadelphia is not getting the performance level out of players that they thought they were going to get.
No, I mean, look, Gostisbehere is 4 points. I mean, 1 goal. That's not going to cut it. And his goals have dropped like 13-9-1. Like that's definitely not going to cut it. He's another guy that his shot total is way down. Last year was 180. This year so far, 28. Again, a little over 2 shots a game, and seemingly has lost the spot on the top power play to Provorov. Remember what I told you 2 years ago on this show, that Provorov doesn't have a better shot than Gostisbehere, but he gets through. And Vigneault basically said that on Saturday. Said, it's not about the shot itself. It's just the idea that it gets through. He goes, I know one of them hit 2 Leafs, but that's a part of it. It's just because it goes online where Gostisbehere will completely miss the net. Mm-hmm. And that is something where it is your job to hit the net. And I know we all have jokes about that, shoot the puck, Barry. I know there's a million guys that we could talk about over the years that you want them to hit the net and they just didn't. I get it. But this is something where this is really the bread and butter of this guy's game. And if that's going south, you don't have much left. And so that's an issue. They're not going to put Sam Morin in. Sam Morin is a defensive liability in this league. Sure, could he play 7-8 minutes and rough up some guys? Yes. But beyond that, no. The other telling thing with the Flyers was, a couple of games ago with New Jersey, Chris Stewart allegedly, and I say allegedly because it's fun, has a 44% shootout percentage. Well, they could have used him in the shootout, and they didn't. And then, of course, the game against the Leafs, he didn't play, so he wasn't in the shootout. But it just shows you that the Flyers don't have Chris Stewart for the shootout. They have him to go out there, disrupt, maybe fight. He does get an occasional shot on goal or maybe one play a game that gets something on net. That's it. That's all you're getting out of Chris Stewart. So the Flyers are in this spot because they look like an NHL 500 team. And it's going to be hard for them to break out of that. It really will be.
Especially with teams in their division like the Caps, who, like I said, beat the Sabres on Friday in convincing fashion and then followed that up with a 4-2 win over the Flames.
Yeah, one thing about that win, Jakub Vrana, I've talked about him on this show. He had a hat trick, his first NHL hat trick. That team drafts really well. And that's why they're continuing to stay above the fray. It's not just Ovechkin. It's not just Carlson. It's not just Oshie and Holtby. It's a lot more than that. Samsonov. Samsonov's going to be their number 1 goalie. So,
yeah.
That's
on Friday against the Sabres, they didn't need Holtby to play like Holtby in the past. Right. And actually, he gave up a bad goal to Jokiharju, and they didn't really even skip a beat. It was just, okay, they can almost absorb sort of subpar or average goaltending or the mistakes that a young goalie like Samsonov will make. That's how good they're playing right now. Now, the Islanders, I sort of skipped over it, but they beat the Lightning on Friday. They beat the Sabres on Saturday. They've won 9 games in a row. They're 10-3 overall. And I wasn't overly impressed with how they performed against the Sabres, other than they were really competent defensively and didn't force Varlamov into making ridiculous saves. And, that goes so far. But, we were talking about this before the show. They're challenging teams to dump the puck in the zone.
They are.
Teams don't do that anymore because of puck possession. Nope. And like I said, after the first goal, they slapped 4 guys on the blue line and dared teams to dump it in.
Yeah, come over the blue line. Yeah,
and teams didn't want to do it. And teams don't want to do it.
No, they don't. And I saw them do it against Philly. I've seen them online doing it against other teams. you have to do it. You have to have more stretch passes. You have to have some dump-ins. You have to win a corner battle. You have to have some puck possession, because if you have the puck and they don't, they have to change the way they play. And if you don't, you're playing right into it, because they're fully ready to win 1-0 games, because guys will do everything they can to get the puck out of the zone. And so far, it's working. They don't have the personnel, but they're doing it because they have the best coach in hockey. I mean, they've got 40 goals for. Washington has 64. Carolina's got 49. Boston's got 46. Buffalo's got 45. Florida's got 51. Pittsburgh 47. Leafs 53. Montreal 51. They only have 40. Yeah. Doesn't matter.
And that's the thing. What I'm looking at, and I'm getting some chatter from people in the chat room about, give them credit. I am, but I don't know if this is sustainable. And it's like my criticism and critique of the Edmonton Oilers. On Saturday, they beat the Penguins 2-1 in overtime on a Draisaitl goal. Who else? Either him or McDavid.
Right.
52 shots for Pittsburgh. So that's 51 saves for Mike Smith.
Let me ask a question.
Let's see that last, folks.
Yeah. Let me ask a question of these fans in the chat room of the Islanders. If you continue to win games this way, that's great. Are you ponying up $80 a game to watch 2-1 boring hockey? I want to know that. Or 1-0 boring hockey. Please let me know.
This isn't 1995 at the Brendan Byrne Arena.
It was, because that's how I tweeted the other day. If you remember, I tweeted.
Oh, that's right. Okay, that's why it popped in my head.
No, but I will say this though: the Flyers-Leafs game, right, might not have been the best defensive game. Was that game entertaining? It was absolutely entertaining. It was actually one of the only shootouts that I've cared about in the last couple of years. So sometimes it's good to be entertaining. Trotz doesn't want to be. He doesn't have to be. But I'm just telling you, as a fan, are you enjoying what you're seeing? That's what I want to know.
And I'll have to say, because I cover the NHL and because I'm working for a Buffalo radio station, I'm able to go to Sabres games fairly regularly. And if I was paying like I had paid in the past for season tickets, and that was one of the games that I was scheduled to go to, I would have considered it a gyp because it was a boring game.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't think it was entertaining hockey. And that's basically because of the Islanders' style. If they win with it, I don't blame them. But yeah, I didn't blame the Devils for playing that style. It worked for them, but it wasn't entertaining.
No.
Okay. Rangers beat the Nashville Predators 2-1. Russ, I know that we were talking about UC Saros and his performance in that game.
So UC Saros he plays in the great. There's a great defense that plays in front of him. And he gave up a goal that I didn't like. UC Saros, the last thing he needs to do is sort of go down on a shot when there's traffic, because he is short. There's no way around it. He shouldn't go down as much. I'm not a goaltender coach, but I'm just saying. And it cost him. He's not having a great year. But again, that defense is amazing. I don't know what happens if you put UC Saros, let's say, on the Leafs. As an example, because their defense is a lot looser, and Anderson has to make some of these crazy saves, which he did make against the Flyers. So that's where I say not thrilled with Saros. Now, on the Ranger end, some things are happening. Mark Stahl hadn't played in 2 games. Now he got scratched for both. He's played like 850 games, but you never know when your game doesn't fit somebody's system. And right now, they're winning without him. So if you think Quinn's going to put him in, he's not. Not if we're winning without him. And if that's the case where all of a sudden, the engine has run out because last year he had a nice bounce back year, then they're going to have to figure out what to do with him, whether they Wade Redden him, or I know it's a terrible thing to say, or they try and make a trade. Maybe Tampa wants him because they have every other ex-Ranger. Who knows? Yeah,
unfortunately, you can't Wade Redden them anymore because if that was the case, the Toronto Marlies would be the most expensive AHL.
Well, you can still send a guy. I mean, you can still send a guy down and eat 75% of it, but whatever.
No. It's $1.025.
Oh, that's all in savings.
Yeah, 1.025. That's all you can save. Just to answer a couple things in the chat here. To Joe Morello, he says to me, first you said the Islanders can't sustain it. Now it's not entertaining. No, it's both. They can't sustain it and it's not entertaining.
Mike's doubling down there, Joe. That's
they
call that in Vegas.
Their leading scorer has 10 points and they play boring friggin' hockey. I'm sorry. Now, if they win, I'm sure they don't care. I'm sure they don't care what I think. If Barry Trotz is winning with this, they're going to keep doing it. But I don't know if it's sustainable. I mean, if teams start dumping in, the problem is the Islanders' defense is slow. And that actually, I think that, not guys like Pulak or Pelech, but guys like Boychuk are not fast. And if a team devotes themselves to dumping the puck in the zone, I think that would be a way of beating the Islanders. But, they've won 9 games in a row, so what the hell do I know? The other thing here was, let's see, Mark Peterson says, Mike, you notice the Oilers are still doing the 2 games on, 2 games off for their goalies. That's why Smith isn't going to be burnt out. No, but everybody else is when they're giving up 50 shots. That's the whole. And again, this is not sustainable when you have 2 guys doing all your friggin' scoring. You have no third line and no fourth line and no defense other than Clefbaum and Nurse.
Yeah. I want to say this. The Islanders have not played the Hurricanes yet. And actually, they don't even play them on this swing, which is kind of weird because they just played the Devils, then they're going to play the Flyers, then they're going to play the Rangers. Why wouldn't they play the Islanders? Like, why? You know what I mean? You look at that and you say, travel-wise, why wouldn't that happen? But I'm looking to see when they play them, and it's not in the foreseeable. That's a team who does do a little dumping and chasing at times and maybe could cause some problems. But getting back to the Rangers, Henrik Lundqvist hasn't played in 3 games. So Georgiev has gotten 3 straight. And he's beaten 2 really good teams in Tampa and Nashville. I have a feeling right now Lundqvist isn't going to get in there. He's got a .906 save percentage. Just hold the questions there for a sec, Mike. He's got a .906 save percentage, but the battle is going to be, are they going to continue to play the hot hand? And is this a way of trying to annoy Henrik Lundqvist so he'll want out, even though he says he hasn't? This is something we're going to have to watch.
Yeah, again, I have to answer Joe here. He says Toronto's defense is slow. That's actually the one thing that they're not.
No, they're not slow, Joe.
They're not. Are they good defensively? No. Are they careful with the puck? No. Are they slow? Well, if you're talking about Martin Marincin, sure.
I saw Tyson Barrie. He was so much faster than the Flyers. He had the puck in one play. He fell down and still managed to sort of get up and get the puck past to somebody else before a Flyer could get to him. Now, they have guys who could skate.
I don't think Joe is used to us like answering during the show here because he's like, what's going on here? Okay, interesting thing about the Blackhawks. They beat the Ducks last night. They lose to the Kings on Saturday.
How did they beat the Ducks?
It was in overtime.
So Patrick Kane won it in overtime.
Yes. The interesting thing was after the game, I think it was after the game, there was an interview with Robin Leonard. And Robin Leonard was asked about, I guess he was asked about the Blackhawks defense, and his response was, "Well, I played in front of played behind one of the worst defensive teams in the NHL in Buffalo for 3 years. So I guess this is like a piece of cake." I mean, I cannot believe how many times Leonard goes to the well when it comes to his time in Buffalo. It was like an unmitigated disaster for him.
It was scarring, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, he was.
That's the way he acts, like it was scarring. But the Hawks team, again, they're just not that good. I mean, I get it. You won a game because you have Patrick Kane and 3-on-3. You're going to get that. But they were minus on differential by, I don't know, they were minus 10 going into that game.
Right.
They're just not that good. I mean, they are shuffling deck chairs and reshuffling deck chairs, but at the end of the day, their blue line stinks.
Here's a couple things that stand out just looking at the standings and looking at like just items that just pop out. The Columbus Blue Jackets, who are a team now without scoring, but have always prided themselves on being really good defensively. They're a minus 16 goal differential. And that has got to be driving Torts insane.
Yeah.
I mean, but Russ, I don't see that turning around because they just don't have. I mean, when I've seen them a couple times so far this year playing against the Leafs, I like Dubois as a player. I think they have other good players like Atkinson and Boone Jenner, but there's not enough there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, even though right now they're only 4 points out of a playoff spot, I don't think unless they make some trade during the season to add offense that they're going to have enough firepower to stay in this race.
It's going to be hard for them to have enough firepower to stay in it. I mean, I give Torts all the credit, but again, I watched Torts' team get torched by the Flyers. The Flyers put up 7 against them. They're going to have games like that. It's going to be hard for them. We'll see. I mean, it'll be very interesting to see how it all plays out, but they're going to have to do something big at the deadline to stay in it if they're 4 or 6 points out.
Now here, and I wanted to talk about Puljujarvi for a second because it was brought up on the Saturday headlines, and we'll take some questions in the chat. The Oilers are 10-4-1, 21 points, and on just looking at that has to be impressive. But the thing that I think is the least impressive is they lose 2 games, they're out of the playoffs.
Right.
21 points, and the 2 wildcard teams are Vegas and Calgary at 18. And everybody picked Vegas and Calgary ahead of Edmonton.
Right.
Arizona is at 17 points. Vancouver's at 20. Anaheim's at 19. Nobody expected Vancouver to be there. Nobody expected.
But we could talk about them and say that they're a bubble team. Like we felt like, I mean, if you remember, I thought they'd have the best power play, and their power play is deadly. Like, so some of those things are happening for them. They're not a total surprise.
No, but I think most people picked them 4th or 5th in the Pacific and not 2nd.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll talk about a couple things here. One, the regrettable injury and collision on Saturday between David Backes and Scott Sabourin. Sabourin was knocked out. It was a head-to-head collision.
Yeah, and Sabourin was the aggressor on that one. So
yeah, he was trying to hit Backes, and he basically they conked heads, and you can see by the picture on Instagram that Sabourin posted on Sunday. He's got a gash right here over his eye. Yeah. His tooth was chipped. I think the tooth was chipped when he was unconscious and hit and face planted into the ice.
It was more than his tooth chipped. It looked like he had like an Invisalign thing or something on his teeth. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The description was a chipped tooth, but
yeah.
the fun, and that's not funny, obviously, but what happened after the hit while he's passed out on the ice and he's being attended, Backes was kneeling next to it. He was as affected as anybody on Sabourin's own team. In fact, I think I saw a Senators player going over to him and consoling him because it was a random thing. Mm-hmm. And both teams, I give the Bruins a lot of credit. They were making sure that he was okay, and it was a situation.
Backes felt instantly bad, like you could see that.
And the thing is, they said Backes was injured. I don't know if he was injured or if he was just affected. He was out for the rest of the game. They said
he was affected, if you ask me.
Yeah, they said it was an upper body injury, and he didn't play the rest of the game. But I didn't see anything.
They could have put him in concussion protocol. That is possible, but maybe. But I think he was affected too, and hey, I mean, I would feel bad too. So I give him a lot of credit for that. You're right.
But thankfully, he's okay. Like I said, he took a picture of himself in a Boston hospital, posted it on Instagram. Apparently, he's going to be released today. So, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a while before he gets back in the lineup. But thankfully, it wasn't anything of a severe nature where there was. I mean, he gave the thumbs up to the Boston crowds, and he was moving his extremities after the hit. So there was no worry of paralysis.
I do want to mention, because you mentioned Vancouver, but I didn't get a chance to really expand on them. So, Pettersson scores a couple of goals the other night. He's got 6. He's
and was first star of the week this week.
Yeah, he's one of the best rookies we've ever seen come in this league in the last 15 years. Agreed?
Yes.
I mean, again, if he didn't get hurt last year, looking at his point total, he may have played 66 games, but he wasn't right for probably 10 of those.
No, that was the only negative in his season, is that he got hurt, and it wasn't just once; it was 2 or 3 times.
Right. So it's amazing to see, what he's doing. But also, Thatcher Demko got the win in last game, and I know people the same way I was with Binnington. I was very high on Demko from the very beginning. I've written about him a lot. I know his family a little bit just through hockey now, and he's 4-1. He might be the best backup in hockey. He's got a .931 save percentage. That's a big reason why Vancouver's doing what they're doing, because before, when they used to go from Markstrom, they would go to like Nielsen or somebody else who is
Richard Bachman or something like that. Yeah.
Average to below average. Now they've got a way above average backup.
Yeah, who eventually will be their starter.
Eventually.
And it doesn't seem to be a serious injury, but Quinn Hughes suffered, I think it was a lower body injury. I think it was an ankle, and he didn't play in their last game. A couple things. The Puljujarvi thing. I know Eck wrote about it today. Elliot Friedman talked about this on Saturday, and he mentioned the Rangers as a potential destination for Puljujarvi. Mm-hmm. And I was a little intrigued by that because, I don't see the Rangers really needing a Puljujarvi unless they think the value is there, unless they have a lot of prospects or draft picks that they can, trade for a guy who they think is closer to being a contributor. He's doing really well in the Finnish league right now. The team that I had heard had been, sort of kicking tires on him was Carolina, which made a lot of sense because they're heavily Finnish with Aho and Teravainen and a few other players. So, but Rangers were mentioned, Russ. What do you think of that possibility?
I'm thinking to myself, if that were to happen, what would the Rangers give up? I would think, I don't know, would Edmonton take Brendan Smith on? They probably can't afford the money.
No.
But so I don't think they would do that. Would they take Mark Stahl? Maybe.
Yeah, but it seems like they want something young and inexpensive for Puljujarvi.
I don't know. I got to see how many years Stahl has left, and I'm sure the Rangers would eat a certain amount.
1 at 5.7.
That's not that bad. If you think about it, what if the Rangers say, hey, we'll retain half and
give you a second-round pick on top?
We'll give you a pick. That could be a doable deal.
Yeah, it might be.
It doesn't hurt Edmonton. It gives them more defensive depth for the next 2 years or a year and a half. I think that's something that could happen. I don't think you're talking about them, an Adam Fox or Grabstoff or something like that. That's probably what Edmonton is dreaming of. Oh, Puljujarvi scoring in the Finnish. Dreaming of that, but they're really not going to get that because, again, he's doing it there. He's not doing it here. So there is a little bit of risk. Would the Rangers trade like they have Tarmo Reunanen, who's just in Hartford? Would they trade him for Puljujarvi? Maybe it's a good young defenseman. Maybe they look at him and say, all right, you know what? We could do that if you want a guy who maybe he'll be in the NHL in a year or two and could possibly be there for 5 or 6 years under your control, salary-wise. That's a possibility. Right now, this year, he's got 2 points in 11 games. Last year, he had 25 points. He's pretty good. He had 5 points in 6 playoff games. That's the kind of guy I think Edmonton will get unless they got somebody established on a deal.
Now, we've talked about Byfuglien, so in terms of the whole situation.
You know what? I have another thought. Sorry. Brain's firing. I've got an interesting one on this. What if you trade Sean Day for him?
Okay. What kind of, what is he's in Hartford, I'm assuming now, right?
Is he? I got to double check. He was last year, but.
Yeah, unless they loaned him out if they loaned him not to another AHL team, then you can tell that he's.
No, he's with Hartford. He's got 2 points. He was with Maine last year for part of the year. That's why I was wondering. He has 2 points in 8 games. But what if they offered Sean Day? It's a big defenseman who might take a little longer to develop. You could take a look at him now and see where he's at.
I think as a throw-in, they probably want a second-round pick in the prospect.
So Sean Day in the second rounder. I think the Rangers would do that, and I think that's a fair trade.
Yeah. The other thing was Byfuglien. I know we talked about Byfuglien a lot last week, and the only thing that advanced the
story. We're talking more than he is.
Yeah, I know. The only thing that advanced the story more was the report from either Chris Johnston or Elliott that there was some speculation that the Jets were not happy about him having the ankle surgery. They can't really talk about it because now it's a PA arbitration thing where, like, was the injury caused by hockey issues, and does he, when does he get paid? But there's also talk about when he comes back, do the Jets even want him?
Well, of course they want him. They do.
I mean, maybe not. Maybe that this is a deal breaker in terms of, okay, well, he can resume his career, but maybe they would be willing to move him. And
to be honest, they would still take him as a forward, even if his defense wasn't good. Like they would.
But I think they're so hurting on defense right now. And I know that Eck mentioned, I think, Minnesota because he's from Minnesota,
right?
And are you telling me that Minnesota wouldn't trade a Jonas Brodin for a Bufflin? I mean, they probably
would do that.
Yeah, they probably have to be a little more cap relief there, but I mean, that might be something that the Jets would entertain, even though it would be trading Bufflin to a team in their own division. Maybe that kind of deal would have some potential. All right, let's take some questions here.
The one thing I'm thinking about, I don't think it has to be a defenseman for a defenseman.
No.
I think when you look at it, if I'm looking at it from a Winnipeg Jets perspective,
Tucker?
No, but Jordan Greenway,
maybe
a big, strong guy who could play around the net. I mean, I think it's a risk for getting Bufflin, and it's a high salary, so they're going to have to eat some.
That's why I was saying a guy like Brodin, because Brodin's making $4 million,
right?
Whereas Greenway, I think, might be still on his ELC.
No, he might be, but they'd have to, eat some salary.
Right.
But I think that would make it fair then, because again, Greenway's a big guy. He's got 5 points in 12 games. You might be able to fully develop him where he hasn't fully developed yet, and get something really good for him.
Mark Peterson says, what about Howden in a draft pick, Ross?
I don't think they can do it. They need all the centers they can get right now. That's the problem.
Okay, Esmir, what do you think of the Devils trading for Domingue?
I told everybody off the post, and I'll say it here, I think there's a chance, like in my mind, the Devils got him because they probably have their doubts about Corey Schneider in New Jersey going forward. They don't have their doubts about Blackwood for sure.
Yeah.
Blackwood's getting playing time.
Yeah, I see. I thought there was a possibility there that Blackwood, in front of that bad defense and that bad team, they don't want to expose him to getting destroyed.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's it. I think Blackwood's there to stay, and maybe they would, again, if San Jose is desperate and you want to try and swap goalies, you basically swap Schneider for Martin Jones. I think there's a possibility there, and I think the salaries are close, and you could do that deal tomorrow, and both of them could probably fit it under the cap, and I think both would be happy because we've seen little glimpses of both being decent still, but not where they are. They've got to have a change.
Bardicus asks the odds of Puljujarvi being traded before the December 1st deadline. I think 75% trade, 25% he stays in Finland.
99% traded.
I mean, if teams are undervaluing or underbidding to try to get a bargain,
it doesn't matter. You have to trade him. At this point, it's an abject failure to keep him on your roster because he doesn't want to be there. He is never going to play for the Edmonton Oilers again. You have to just get what you can get for him.
Okay, let's see.
What you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that more than likely he's getting traded, but if teams are not giving Holland close to what he wants,
doesn't matter. You have to.
I know, but he's still, but if he's not getting close to what he wants, he can still retain his value. He can have a good year in Finland. Then he trades him at the draft.
All right, let me give you a comparable.
Okay.
Let's say you're a home that has 2 refrigerators, and you really only need 1 refrigerator, and you've got to get rid of this other refrigerator. You'll do just about anything you can to get rid of the other refrigerator, don't you think?
I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, let's see. Let's see here. Bardicus again. Will the Caps extend Holtby, or is this the last hurrah on that team?
They will not extend Holtby. No.
Yeah, no. I think Samsonov is your number one next year, and then they maybe trade or sign a veteran backup to make sure that I don't think Holtby's going to go someplace and be a number one.
This has been the plan for a long time, I think, ever since they were able to draft Samsonov. Everybody knew what kind of pedigree he had. They just wanted to bring him along slowly. Holtby's going to be gone. They're not going to miss a beat, but they'll save on the cap. And that's what they're going to need to do to keep their other players there, to keep them, in the top spot.
Okay, Terry's GG&G. What team in the NHL right now seems the most in need to make a trade? I'll say the San Jose Sharks.
The Sharks. I mean, there's no question it's the Sharks. But you can't make a trade for trade's sake. But that game against Vancouver, they put Aaron Dell in, and he gives up 4 goals. Like, you have to, if nothing else, get another goalie in the mix.
Right.
You have to get Martin Jones playing fewer games, and you got to get another goalie playing more games if you can't get rid of Martin Jones, simply to have that change. And Aaron Dell's not the guy. If you remember, Aaron Dell probably would have been traded already if he wasn't so inexpensive to the cap.
Yeah. And I just have to say, because there's a possibility that Doug Wilson recognizes that the current construct of that team is not working, and that they maybe trade, say, one of their defensemen. I don't think it's Burns, even though Burns has a modified no trade, so they could move him. They would probably like to trade Vlasic, but I think Vlad, with a no move clause and with a $7 million salary for a long term, I think they're stuck with him. So, but the problem is that what team is going to take Brent Burns making more than $8 million? He's 34 years old. I still think he's a good defenseman. They're just going to hope right now that things can turn around quickly.
My phone just won't shut off completely anymore. It just won't.
The friggin' thing, damn it!
I have no volume on and it still rings. I have to get a handle on it. Anyhow,
but they're not firing their coach. And I don't see a way out in terms of trading one of those big price defensemen. I mean, I heard again today with Kevin Allen doing his podcast. He was talking to Tom Laidlaw, saying that he's noticed Erik Karlsson looks like he's mailing it in. I mean, what do you do when you have a defenseman who's making the most in the NHL at $11.5 million and he looks like he doesn't care?
Then they might change the coach.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying they're going to, because Wilson, that's always the last resort for him. He's a pretty even keel guy, but he can't do anything with that blue line. He can only get them to play better. If DeBoer can't get them to play better, then that might be the other end.
Somebody else. But then you're asking the question, who's the somebody?
Well, that's for him to worry about.
Right. Okay. No more questions here, so we'll end the show right there, and we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz,